Welcome to Hope+Elim. We are excited that you've decided to join us today. This is the day that the Lord hath made. We get to rejoice and be glad in it. There's a powerful message that's coming your way. We look forward to the message that God has prepared. This is a Rhema word coming just for you. We ask you that you would subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you can make sure you have access. So please get ready for a powerful opportunity for God to speak directly to your heart.
Thank you, Don. I'm going to get it out of the way because I'm notorious for it. My name is Tunink. And for those of you who've never been here, you may not know that I forget to introduce myself every single time. So I get into it, and then it's like, who is you? And so I'm really grateful to be here with you today. And I think the songs we heard today that we got to pour ourselves out before the Lord with are so timely. Because I know for some person in this room, that song was hard because you are crying out, God, don't give up on me yet, but I've given up on me. Don't give up on me yet, God, but I gave up on myself last night, and I tried to give up on myself last night, God, but for some reason, you didn't give up on me yet, and I'm sitting right here in this room, still breathing, and I don't know how, but you've got something for me. Because last night, you tried. And you're wondering why he hasn't given up on you. Time after time after time. It's because you have a God who loves you, who not only cares about what you believe, but also cares about how you think. Because today, as we bring a culmination to these 10 big questions about the Christian life, today what we're talking about is how does faith help our mental health? And in the church, there can be this stigmatizing, Lord, center me. There can be a stigmatizing in the church that we brush mental health to the side as some other people's problems and not navigate and confront our own. Today, what I want to talk about is how God, who crafted and designed the intricacies of your brain and wiring in your nervous system, is a God who couples faith and mental health together. That both are important. But we need to have language around this conversation that we can all come together on. Because when you hear certain words, there's certain things that come up, there's certain thoughts that you might have about it, whether you've dealt with it yourself or not. I want us all to be on the same page with definitions and language today for clarity's sake. First, before I get into anything as well, there are going to be triggering words. And the reason why I bring that up is for some of us, it's good to fortify our mental and our hearts to know what to be prepared for. I also want to bring up with clarity and transparency that I am not standing on the stage as someone who says, hey, I'm part of the faith community and I don't wrestle with anything within my mental psyche at all. I'm coming before you today to say I'm sitting right next to you because I have dealt with the severity and the claws of deep depression. And I still stand here before you today to say, I don't have it all figured out, but guess what? I know who does, and I want to walk with you and let you know that you are not alone in this. It is time for us as the church to stop putting this to the side and address it. So, today, mental health versus mental illness. I think it's important for us to differentiate the two and extrapolate on both of them. And what I want to also say is we are creating language, not shame. We are creating definitions, not defining. So when I talk about these things, know that I'm talking about myself and talking about my own thing, not just about you. And this is language we can all talk about together. I want to also address this. I do not have a doctorate or PhD in psychology or biology. So for those of you in the room who are therapists, who are counselors, who have given significant amount of years to these things, this is not a diminishing of all your hard work. This is a recognition of how amazing your work is and how much your work matters. And what I'm trying to do today is I'm trying to bridge the gap between the faith and church community and professional help that we need. So give me a little grace this morning as I try to bring this down to earth with the complexities that happen within our mind. Mental illness. This is a working definition that we're going to go with today from the CDC. Mental illnesses are health conditions involving changes in emotion, thinking, or behavior, or a combination of these. Mental illnesses can be associated with distress and/or problems functioning in social, work, or family activities. To give it to you plainly, mental illnesses, I have mental illness around my depression, is a disconnect in our functioning. It is a way in which we are not able to function properly amidst the stresses and the coping mechanisms of life that try to tear us down, that try to put us down, that try to leave us sabotaged and stuck in a rut. And with our mental illnesses is a combative nature that we have where we have to recognize, I don't have all the proper tools and I'm struggling with this. Notice the language is not shaming, it's inviting you in to give a definition and a name to what you've been dealing with and you may have not had language for it. Mental health. Mental health is the component of behavioral health that includes our emotional, psychological, and social well-being. Mental health is a state of well-being that enables us to cope with the stresses of life, realize our abilities, learn well, and work well, and contribute to our community. I do not give you this definition again to typecast you and put you in a box to say, well, if you have mental illness, you can't have mental health. This is for us to say, these are the ways in which I struggle. These are the ways in which I have mental illnesses. This is the way in which I'm trying to progress and work on my mental health. What I want to also say is I don't want to land just on mental health. I'd like to define it and bring it further along to say mental wellness. Because just like our physical wellness, our mental wellness is something that we are going to continue to work on the rest of our lives. You don't go to one therapy session and you're good. You don't just go to a counselor once and you're good. Wellness is something we develop and work through the rest of our life and through seasons of our life. And so again, this is an embracing and welcoming in with these definitions. Now, when it comes to definitions, when we talk about mental illness and mental health, very, very quickly, when you have been associated with a disorder, when you've been associated with a diagnosis, you suddenly believe that that diagnosis maybe is your identity. It's who you are. Today, I want to adamantly say to you, it is a diagnosis. It is not who we are. You are a child of God. You are not a diagnosis. You have a prescription. You are in the family of God. You are not the prescription. You utilize it, and there's no shame in that. But it does not define who you are. So if you're someone today who takes medication and you think that the church looks at you with disdain, I hope that that's not true, and I hope as Hope+Elim, we embody an identity to say, you have an identity in Christ, with or without prescription. Something to help you and maybe give you a little visual and tangibility to it. This statement, let it be something that goes within the messaging of your psyche. When those moments come up where you feel like your identity is being sabotaged by doubt. I walk in the rain. I feel the rain. I am not the rain. I walk through depression and anxiety. I feel depression and anxiety, or maybe PTSD or bipolar disorder. I walk, I feel, but I am not those things. And maybe today you feel like you've been drowning in your rain. I'm here to tell you that I've also felt that too. I've got an umbrella. Doesn't mean we still won't feel it, doesn't mean we still won't see it, doesn't mean we still won't experience it. But maybe today I can offer some relief and some breathing for you today to know that you're not alone. Now, when we talk about these things, sometimes we come to church and we believe, well, everybody in the church has it figured out, and I'm the one person who deals with that loneliness and isolation with my mental capacity and mental health, and everybody else has it together. Let me tell you about a book called the Bible. There is a human narrative throughout that shows that there are imperfect people who struggle with depression, anxiety, and questioning of their identity all throughout the Bible, people that we hold in high esteem, and it's a part of their story. Here's some biblical examples, just to name a few. And I want to talk about two different sides of this that I think is very important. One, there are multiple examples of this in the Bible. Two, and this is not to dismiss you, ladies in the room, please hear my heart. You are important, and there are stories among this in the Bible too, but I think it's very important for us as men to recognize that there are strong men in the Bible who dealt with depression. That there are strong men in the Bible who dealt with anxiety. Because when we think about mental health, a lot of us as men think, I've got to be strong. I got to put on the front that nothing's wrong with me. I cannot talk about my feelings. I cannot talk about how I feel. I cannot talk about how I think, because if I do, it will show a weakness, and I have learned in my past that if I show weakness, I will be traumatized. Because you believed and you trusted that cousin, that parent, that family member, and they took advantage of your weakness, and now you have to say, I have to be strong. Otherwise, I will be played. And we have a God who meets you right where you're at to say, let's rewire that. You can come to the table with your weaknesses. Ladies, you as well. The first story, Elijah, just for brief context, we don't have time to go through all of them today. Elijah just had a huge victory on a mountain called Carmel against 850 prophets that believed in a false god named Baal. This just happened. This dude just had a battle rap with another god, and he won. God showed up, won 3 rounds, over. Next chapter, one person threatens his life, and Elijah, immediately his identity collapses. He runs, and he says to God in verse 4, it would be better if you just killed me. How often in our lives, and maybe for someone in this room, you feel this right now, you just came from an overwhelming victory with God. And then that one person came back into your life. That one situation popped up, and it absolutely destroyed everything. And your mental psyche, your mental stability is all in shambles, and you are saying, it is better for me not to be here right now. Guess what? The Bible is still relevant. It still speaks to what you're going through. Jeremiah, you want to talk about someone who self-deprecates themselves? This man literally curses the day he was born. He said it would be better if I'd never even been conceived. Curse the person who sent the message to my father that I was going to be born. That is a deep passage that you need some mental fortitude before you go into. David, we don't have time for it today, but I think it is a very critical study that David dealt with bipolarism. If you read Psalm, this is a man who goes from praising God to questioning God, praising God, questioning God, praising God, questioning God, wondering about his own identity, wondering about another piece of him, and he continues to wrestle. And again, this is not shame, this is to say, you are not alone. Job, when everything in your life is stripped away from you and you're wondering, God, why? And you feel like you're being shamed for the place you're still stuck in. Job had questions for God. God is big enough to handle your questions in the midst of your depression. God is big enough to handle your challenges in the midst of your anxiety. This is what the Bible continues to show as examples of imperfect people loved and used by a perfect God. That is what the Bible has to offer us today. And this is why I wanted to lead with that, because I don't want you to think that the Bible and our faith can't be coupled with science, biology, chemicals, and chemistry within our mental fortitude. Now, for you today, you might be wondering, why is this important? I've never struggled with this. I never dealt with this before. So why do I even care? I have some statistics for you that absolutely broke my heart and are probably actually even more prevalent than when I found them. And I want to share some with you today. There are some graphics, but I'm also going to share some just in my notes. 1 out of 5 teens and adults suffer from mental disorders or struggles every year. 1 in 5. Only 43.8% of adults have sought professional help. We have more than half adults that have not sought professional help for the things they're going through. And maybe today you feel shame. Maybe today you feel helpless because you don't have the luxury of therapy. Your job doesn't cover it. You don't have the funds to go to it and you feel stuck. I want you to know there are resources for you. There is opportunity for you, and you are not alone today in that. We want to help. Half of adults with mental illness do not receive treatment. That is 27 million people. It continues on, and we know that COVID was difficult. It messed with us. It messed with me. 60% of youth with mental illnesses do not receive treatment or help at all. Our teens, our youth are struggling. And let me say this lightly too, and with love. This is not a shame for you to feel like, well, I'm not equipped, and so now I feel paralyzed and I can't do anything about it. This is a welcome invitation again to say, let's stop pushing it underneath the bed. Let's stop putting it in a storage cabinet. Let's stop saying, well, someday. Now is the time for us to be equipped to be able to help those who need it. 60% of youth don't have help at all. Our youth need us. 2.5 million youth have severe major depression. 2.5 million. 264 plus million people struggle with depression. 40 million people struggle with anxiety. I know what it's felt like to step out of your car and say, it's probably better if I'm not here anymore. And to feel the weight of that and not know if you could talk to anybody about it. My invitation to you today is, if that's how you felt this weekend, how you felt this year, how you felt for all of your life, I want you to know you have an ear right here, and right here, and right here. You're not alone. God has more for you. He's not done with you yet. Don't give up. Don't give up. And we need to talk about it, because here's what we've done. Big church. This is not a shaming of you. This is not a projection on you. This is the realization and the thing that we have to accept within our faith community. We have allowed ourselves, as past generations, my generation, your generation, and generations before, we have allowed ourselves to minimize, demonize, marginalize, stigmatize mental health and illness conversations. If we cannot talk about mental health, mental illnesses, and our mind, how can we expect these generations after us to have a healthy mindset? It's like you building something without tools and then saying, well, you do it. Without any guidance, without any instruction, without any equipping, we are pressuring our youth to come up with answers that we don't have. And again, this is not to embarrass or shame you. This is to say, now is the time for you to find a toolkit. Now is the time for us to get equipping, because we cannot expect generations to get it right for us. It's our generation. It is our time right here. Right here. Right now. We got to stop expecting another generation to get it together. We have been given the opportunity, and we need a balanced approach. We must be able to recognize that faith and medical professional help can work together. The same with faith and science. If we can suggest seeing a doctor for bodily problems with our gut and our ligaments, we must also be able to allow the embracing of medical help for our mental diseases, disconnections, and struggles as well. When you have a problem with your body and you break your ankle, you do not go to somebody and say, well, just pray about it. Something that a lot of moms used to do, or parents also said, like, oh, just go sit on the toilet. There's a comedian that was like, oh, you broke your ankle, go sit on the toilet. Like, there's these things that we've learned from our past because other generations were also not equipped, and so they just gave what they could, and we have to accept that other generations weren't terrible, they just weren't equipped. But the excuse stops with us because there is equipping that can happen. And if we're going to continue to excuse because we just don't want to put in the effort, then we're missing it. We have to be able to recognize that professional help is necessary, and it's also something that is welcomed. It's not a shaming. You're not typecasted because you go see a therapist. I would highly recommend that every single human in existence should at least go to therapy for a season, no matter what. You've got to have that opportunity and experience to recognize someone else looking in to what you're going through and to be able to unpack and unwire those things that you have put so far back in your mind and compartmentalize and maybe in survival mode that you didn't realize that's why I have a trauma response to that. That's why I act out on those people when that happens, is because you have these things that your mind and psyche has put so far back for the sake of your survival that you don't know why you do it because your mind, cannot access it because it's locked it away because it knows what happens if it lets it out. Without the proper equipping, it knows it will destroy you. So we need this balanced approach with faith and our mental, because here's what I'll say too, and this is not a dismissing, this is not a deteriorating. What science and studies and academia is doing is catching up with what God's already done. That's not a diminishing of the wisdom and incredible intellectual nature of people who are in academics. That is to say, we are now, with awe and amazement, discovering the ways in which God already put into motion things, and we are now putting language behind it. God spoke and it happened. We are bringing definition and language to what he spoke because God's the one who made it. So here's a welcoming statement. You're like, a welcoming statement? My goodness, I feel like we in the trenches already. This is important. As we get into what we talk about with our faith and with our mental wellness, I want you to know this. You are not less than someone else because of your struggles with mental illnesses. You are not less of a Christian because you use medication. You are not less of a child of God because you struggle mentally or have chemical imbalances in your brain. Here at Hope+Elim, you are loved, you are embraced, and you are welcomed here. That is something that I want you to know. And the reason why I bring up 1 Corinthians 10:13 is that it talks about that there are temptations in our lives that are no different from what others experience, but God is faithful. And I'm bringing a parallel not just to temptation, but also to the chemical imbalances and mental struggles that we have, to know that you have a God who is faithful. You have a God who is there. You have a God who has experienced the same mental struggles you've gone through throughout human history. He is not new to mental wellness. He is a God who formulated and made your mind with such intricacies, and beauty. He knows you better than anybody. We don't have a God who is shocked by what we go through. We have a God who's crafted you and made you and said, well done. A welcoming empowerment to you if you didn't realize that there's language to this, and maybe there's a conviction and stirring in your heart and soul because you know there's just something that's not connecting right. This is a welcoming empowerment to you, to know that we are all in this together. If we struggle with mental illnesses and are ashamed to admit it, this is our empowering moment right here. An embrace from our church family. We want to see each of us healed and functioning at our full potential. Please join me Please join us in connecting to the help we need because we are doing the same and desire the same for all of us. You see how this is an invitation, not a casting out. This house should be a place of safety, not a place where you don't know if you're welcomed or not because of the things you wrestle with. 75% of people who deal with mental illnesses come to a place of worship before they seek professional help. That is praiseworthy, that they are seeking and desiring answers from God. That is also a very deep and weighty recognition of the church that if we are not equipped ourselves, we have people coming into this house who need safety and need embrace. And if we are not willing to embrace that, we are going to continue to push people who are looking for God and they're getting stuck by us because we say pray about it instead of saying you might need a therapist. Let me pray for you and give you the number of a therapist who can help you unwind these things in your mind. It's a both and. We believe in the power of prayer. We believe in the ways in which spiritually God can reorchestrate and transform the things in your mind, and we're going to get to it, and also the ways in which God can beautifully work through and talk through somebody to give you a message he needs to send to you. Now, there's a lot going on with this conversation, and it's too much to get into in one day. But I want to introduce the cognitive triangle to you and the science of our brain. How many of you know about the cognitive triangle? Fantastic. We're going to learn about this together today. So, I'm going to try to do my best to bring this down to earth and give you a couple of analogies. So don't lose me, and don't lose this when I start giving definitions, okay? Stay with me, because I'm going to give you an analogy that makes it a little more practical and a little more visual. But first, this is the science of our brain in the cognitive triangle. We start with our belief and our thought. This is a message that gets sent to us, something that we think, something that's pertaining to us and sent to us. Okay, belief, thought. Then it goes to our feelings, what we feel about it, what we see about it, how it embraces within our mind and how it works. Then it goes to our behavior. So if I've got this message and how it makes me feel, now I'm going to react, respond, or behave in a certain way because of how this made me feel and the messages I'm getting from it. Are you with me? So let's go back to the top, belief and thought. This is neural pathways in neurons, positive and negative. Think about these neurons as a way in which there's a highway in your mind that's traveling back and forth of messages that are happening constantly in your brain. The things that are carrying those neurons, and I know we're getting deep, so keep staying with me. I got an analogy for you, okay? Stay with me. Neuron, they're traveling with a message. That message is being carried by neurotransmitters. Those are going along the highway of these neurons. And for some of us, the reason why it's difficult for us to catch messages that we need or that we are getting overwhelmed with is that there's neurotransmitters that are maybe sending too many messages to us. And for some of us, we get this because it's like, oh my goodness, my mind just feels like it's just a never-ending highway of all these thoughts and it never slows down. And then there's also neurotransmitters that are wired within us that we recognize, oh, I'm kind of actually depleted with these neurotransmitters and I don't have enough messages getting to me. There's these chemical imbalances that happen within our brains, and again, that's not shaming, that's giving you language for you to be able to say, that's language for what I've been experiencing. So now, excuse me, I gotta go back. There we go. Oh, I went forward. There we go. All right, we're going to feelings. Feelings are tied to our amygdala. Say it with me, amygdala. Look at somebody next to you and say, amygdala. I know that felt kind of weird. Don't make it awkward. Amygdala is a walnut within our brain, in the back of our brain, that when we receive a message, it fires adrenaline, an emotive response for our flight, our fight, or our freezing. Now, hear me say this. I am not going to demonize the amygdala today, but what I am going to say is for some of us, some of the chemical imbalances that we don't have control over our amygdala, and it is firing off adrenaline more than it should or less than it should, and it's leaving us in a place of imbalance. So, we get these neurotransmitters sending messages that go to our feelings, that produce something within our amygdala that sends off adrenaline and how we feel about a situation, and then it goes to our behavior and our cognitive biases. This is a part of behavior. And I know this is a lot, so I'm going to give you an analogy to help you with this. First one, this is for me. To be transparent and vulnerable about something I fear. I am afraid of heights. Terrified. When I get up high, I'm like, my goodness, why did I make this decision? Why am I here? This is about to be real bad. For some reason, sometimes I choose to go on a roller coaster. Why? I don't know. My amygdala also wonders why. So I'm on this roller coaster. Here is how we put this into practice. There is a message that is sent to me that is saying, you are on a roller coaster. This is about to go up this super high thing, and you're about to drop. My amygdala fires off and says, you about to die. You finna crash. This is about to go all bad. You've seen them videos on social media? You've seen what's happened to those people? And you get stuck in this loop of your fear producing adrenaline that is sending to your behavior something that's going to say in your cognitive biases that, hey, you getting on roller coasters means you're gonna die. And so you view roller coasters with fear. You, me. I view roller coasters with fear. You probably don't. And so then I have this cognitive bias within me whenever I get on a roller coaster that I might die, that something bad's gonna happen. I have this fear that's welling up within me, and I get stuck there. Now, something I'm gonna also introduce is that while the amygdala is firing off adrenaline shots, say, am I gonna fight, am I gonna fly, or am I gonna freeze? Because again, there's moments where amygdala helps us when we're in moments where we just need to react when something's happening. There's also the prefrontal cortex. Your prefrontal cortex is the logical reasoning part of your brain that says, bruh, you're on a roller coaster, I know you're scared, but the prefrontal cortex says, you're strapped in, you've been on this ride 3 times already, nothing's happened, and thousands of people have been on this ride, and they're good too. That's the prefrontal cortex. Are you with me? Prefrontal cortex, amygdala, cognitive behavior. I know this is a lot. I'm going to give you one more example. You're running on the sidewalk, or for some of you, you're like, this is already off because I never run. You're walking on the sidewalk. You're walking, and then all of a sudden, you hear this big whoop, like bark. And for some of you, I just triggered you. I'm sorry. So, and you see this dog running towards you, and you're just like, oh no. Like, you start running whether you wanted to or not. Because you got the thought, your neurotransmitters that said, this dog's coming after you, your amygdala fires off, you about to get bit, you about to get wrestled down, you about to die. And your cognitive behavior then is, I don't trust dogs because every single dog is like that. While your prefrontal cortex is saying to you with logic and reasoning, my guy, that dog is on a leash. There's a fence that is 10 feet high in front of you and that dog, and now you are already 3 blocks away. The prefrontal cortex. It's our logic and reasoning, and sometimes that's also the imbalance, is that our prefrontal cortex is not activating the way it needs to for us to reason well in situations, and our amygdala is constantly firing off, and so that's when you snap on people. Sometimes I think our prefrontal cortex is also an infusion of the Holy Spirit to remind you, hey, I know that this happened before in your life, but God's about to do something different. Trust Him. I'm going to show you how faith and psychology meet together, but we have to go through these things to understand our brain and why, when those cognitive behaviors happen with things that we experience, why we sometimes are captive to our past. Because what happened to us once, we got a message about something because that person did that thing to us. And so now we feel distrust, now we feel regret, now we feel bitterness, now we feel scars, now we feel trauma and pain. And that cognitive behavior reminds us, now I never trust anybody again. I could never forgive them. I could never do anything to change that. And we get captive to our past, conditioned and conformed by our circumstances, our childhood, our culture, and our community. whatever that might be for you, what I want to tell you today, and what I want to speak prophetically over this house, is I believe having this conversation today is a propeller for strongholds to finally be broken down. For things that have been from your childhood 20 years ago that you still haven't talked about are finally going to be released, because the enemy knows that if that thing was released, if that thing was freed, if you rewired and worked through that with a therapist or somebody else, you would actually find freedom to be able to trust and love people again. But you are so captive to the past, and you're wondering why you stay stuck, because that amygdala keeps firing off and telling you, I can't trust them. Even though it's a completely different person who has consistently shown you that they're different, but you can't get past it because of your past. Captivity to our past. Romans 12:2, however, has hope for us. It says, don't copy the behavior and customs of this world, because this world will sometimes tell you, stay there. Don't trust. Don't believe, don't change, don't forgive, don't love, whatever it might be. But let God transform you into a new person by changing the way you behave? No. It does not say in Romans 12:2 that this is all about behavior modification and you just getting perfect. That's sometimes what we do in the church. We fully dismiss someone's chemical imbalances, mental struggles, and we say, if you just behave right, we don't care about the rest. Behavior modification is not what we're about here at Hope+Elim. We are about soul transformation, mind transformation. It's not behavior modification, it's the wholeness of who you are, because God transforms you into a new person by changing the way you think. So if God can transform you, and that's the way He transforms you is by changing the way you think, we have to talk about the way we think. We have to understand the way we think. Then you will learn to know God's will for you, which is good and pleasing and perfect. Let me show you this cognitive triangle again with the culmination and the collaboration of faith. Our belief and thought, the message. Do you believe what God says about you? Because for some of us, we struggle with being able to really lean into our faith because our cognitive triangle with God is all messed up, because we saw somebody who was a Christian deal with something improperly, and now we've based our whole entire entity of God upon that personal experience with an imperfect human being who may have been in a season just like us with the wrong answers. But do you believe what God says about you? Isaiah 43:1, we heard it today. He says you're His. That He formed you, that He's with you, that He's not leaving you, that He's holding your hand. 2 Corinthians 5:17, you are new. So those things that come up in your mind that fire off thoughts and try to make you feel a certain type of way, that you're not good enough, that you'll never be good enough, that the things from your past define you so long that you can never become a new person, the Bible promises you how God feels about you is that you have a new life in Christ. The old life is gone and done away with. The new life has come. For some of us, we're captivated to our past because we are still dealing with the guilt and regret of something that happened 25 years ago, and you need to let it go. Because you live your life in a way where you're trying to just be perfect for other people, but you actually haven't dealt with what's actually going on, so you still act out. Believe what God says about you. Feelings. Psalms 139:14. It says how wonderfully complex and beautifully you're made in Christ. Do you actually believe that? Because when we believe that we are wonderfully made by Christ and He sees us wonderfully made, not as a detriment and says, oh, this person has mental illness, or ways in which their mental disconnects with how they're supposed to be functioning, man, that's a bad creation. No, He looks at you and says, how wonderfully complex and wonderfully made I have made you. So if we believe that, if we receive that, then that means we can actually go into that verse that says, in my weakness, His strength is made perfect, to recognize that that's just another testimony of how good God is. Even when I'm weak in something, God is made perfect, and His strength is made perfect, so now I can glorify Him, even in the moments where I fail. I belong. Behavior. See how we're using this triangle with study? You can even do this with your own Bible study. How does this message talk to me? How does it make me feel? What do I own about what God is saying about me? And then how does that affect my behavior? If 1 John 4:19 says that God loved you first, no matter what you did, no matter what you've done, no matter how you think, that means you have the capacity and the feeling to be able to love others. Because it starts with us to know I am loved, so I can love. It's time for us to rewire. We've talked about it. I want you to let this whole cognitive triangle and everything kind of come together within these statements. Father, God gets my receiving. What do I mean by that? My Father gets the reception to send me messages, and He's the one I trust to send me the messages that I believe in, the things that I think about. And people who are aligned with my Father gets my receiving. Feelings get my recognition because we're not dismissing our feelings. We're not dismissing the ways in which we feel things and what we're going through. We don't push them to the side. We don't say, shut that down. We don't say that emotions are too much. We say, I recognize this feeling, and God recognizes this feeling. Let me tell you this. It says that Jesus wept. And however you take that passage, whether you think it's because of anger, because he believed that they didn't trust him with faith, or whether you believe that he is weeping and broken because his friend has died and he sees people grieving, either way, Jesus felt the feeling and knew the result. Jesus wept knowing he was going to raise Lazarus. So if God knows the result of something and still feels, he has capacity for you to feel, even knowing what's about to happen. Faith, even though feelings get my recognition, faith gets my response. Because though we feel things, and it is good for us to feel things and process through that, in the end, are my feelings in charge of me, or is my faith? Is what God says about me and says about others in charge, or is it me? Because that's the ways in which we project to other people, and we project on people, when we let our feelings get the response instead of our faith. Romans 8:6 says that the way I used to think led to death because I was living a fleshly life. But now, because I'm renewed by God's Spirit, the Spirit leads my mind in a life of peace and living. When we let the Spirit take over how we think, we let the Spirit get our response, we live a life that is full of joy and peace for ourselves and for other people. A new mind and new life. If we want a new mentality, we need to understand our new identity. Colossians 3:1-3. It talks about how since you've been raised to new life with Christ, set your sights on the realities of heaven, where Christ sits in the place of honor at God's right hand. Think about the things of heaven, not the things of earth. Does that mean we dismiss what's going on in our lives? No, what it says is we are having a kingdom perspective about the things we're seeing. So that means that person that had that opinion of you, oh, well, that's not eternal. That situation that's happening is not the end of the story. The struggle that you're going through, when I have a kingdom perspective, I get to recognize I have an eternity waiting for me, and these things that I'm struggling with are not going to last. That kingdom perspective is something that gives you confidence and power and dominion to walk in your purpose with a new identity, a new mentality, so that when people come at you and say, I don't understand how you've got confidence and joy when so much is going wrong, you can say, I have a new mentality and a new identity because of Christ. And it's a new life. It's a new rewiring of my brain because I believe what he said about me. You have been wondering this whole time, and I know it has driven someone crazy. What in the world is this doing up here? And I apologize for not giving your mental capacity some rest. I should have said something at the beginning. But what we want to talk about to conclude today is that your mind is a garden. And I know you're like, this is a pretty dismal garden. I don't see any flowers. What we want to use this analogy with is that, one, it takes time for things to grow. It takes time to weed out the things that have been killing your root system. But before we get to that, I want you to show why I truly believe that your mind is a garden, because of the way that God built your DNA, the way that God biologically built your body and your nervous system. And I don't know if you've ever seen this, but this is something that really struck me, and I wanted to share it with you. On the left is your nervous system. On the right is a tree's roots. Now, did God just get lazy during creation and say, just copy paste? Just be done with it. I've done too much creation. It's time for me to take a relax. Just copy and paste the rest. No, I think we have a beautiful, intentional God who wanted us to be able to see within the framework of who I am as a human, I can look out on creation and see a reflection of what's happening within me out there. Your nervous system is rooted in the vagus nerve, which is about 80% of the transmission between your nervous system and your brain, is constantly sending things to your body and out your body. It's what you're breathing in, it's what you're breathing out. How can you plan, to grow something if you are not taking in good things? Maybe you feel like your mind is just a tangled mess of weeds. When was the last time that you put in seeds that were actually good for the soil of your mind? Instead of the seed bag that you had of your past, of that parent that said, I wish you weren't born. Or the friend or cousin or neighbor who did that thing to you that has traumatized you since you were born or since you were a child, and you can't seem to get past it, and you keep planting those seeds of, this is why I'm not good enough. This is why nobody loves me. This is why I do what I do, and I'm never going to be able to change. And you keep planting those seeds and expecting a different result when you continue to actually invest in the wrong things. You're giving capacity within the garden of your mind for those lies to continue to translate. And what I'm telling you today is maybe it's time to pick up a new seed bag. Maybe it's time for you to start believing what God says about you, to say that I am dearly and beautifully loved by a God who loves me and sees me and has designed me the way that I've been, that I am worth loving, that I am worth investing into, that I'm worth growing something amazing, that I'm worth being able to bring produce to this world. Because here's the thing, you have the opportunity with your mind to bring life and bring nourishment to other people with what you produce with the garden of your mind. And the reason why you haven't been able to give to anybody is because there's so many weeds in here that haven't been plucked out, that continue to kill what you're trying to cultivate. And for some of us, we need an expert gardener like Jesus. Come on, the Garden of Eden, I know that thing was popping. Come on. The master gardener, we look at our garden and say, oh, this is pretty. Look at those dandelions. Those are so cute. And Jesus is looking at that and being like, yeah, you think having that person in your life is cute, but they're killing you. It's a weed. It looks good on the surface, but it's killing everything in your psyche. And you keep staying there. It's time to pluck it out. Oh, I don't have the tools to be able to take these weeds out. Jesus says, I do. Let's do it together. What would it look like for us to plant the seeds that we need and then trust the one who calls himself the water of life? To let him water us with his word, to let him water us with the things that we need to hear in our spirit, the prayer, the intercession, the ways in which we dig into his word with sermons and podcasts, and ways in which we connect with God communally on a daily basis, because you cannot expect a garden to grow if you do not have a daily nourishment. Well, I watered and I went to church once this year. No wonder why it is gasping for nourishment. Well, I met with a therapist once, and that must have been good enough. Maybe it's time for us to stop trying to control what's going on in our mind and letting God water and rewire the things that are giving us nourishment. Because for some of us, we're trying to get nourishment from someone who is, oh, Jesus, this was not planned, but I feel it, so let's go with it. You have someone who you are allowing to affirm your identity, to speak over you, your value, and what they're doing, instead of the water of life, nourishing you and giving you continual confidence and belonging and stuff like that, you have someone coming into your life who's draining a Dr. Pepper on your grass. Who is pouring things on what he's trying to cultivate in you, and you think it's nourishment, But the moment it interacts with who you are as a person, it brings death. We have to navigate these things and talk about it. Plant and water the garden. I talked about it. Our mental health grows or is destroyed by how and what we plant and water it with. Look at Isaiah 58:11 and the ways in which God desires for you to be a garden overflowing with produce and overflowing with life. He does not want you to be a desert and dry. He wants you to live and thrive. The last thing that I have for you today, then we're going to get going. This is where faith and mental health meet because, and man, I just want to talk about this for a whole entire time. When you believe with faith and by faith what God has for you, He changes the way that your prefrontal cortex works. Stay with me. The prefrontal cortex is the logic and reasoning. When we live with faith, our logic and reasoning expands because the things that were unreasonable to the world and in our flesh and the ways in which we process things before Christ have now expanded to a reality that is so much bigger than our own limitations. We can start seeing the things and start seeing the evidence of things that the world cannot see. I know for some of us in this room, there is a testimony that by faith, something happened in your life that did not make sense to anybody else, that did not make sense to the outside world, but by faith, that thing happened. By faith, you thought that your marriage was over, but by faith, you saw evidence that God was real and He brought it back together. By faith, you had things in your past with your family and you never thought you would finally be able to reconcile and forgive, but this year was the year that you saw a testimony come to life because your family is reconnecting in a divine way. You have no idea why. It's because by faith, God is doing something that nobody else could see because by faith, He's working. And there's evidence of it in your life. By faith, someone this year has seen the evidence, is going to believe for the things that they've hoped for and see it come to life because we have brought a vision in our mental of a faith and kingdom perspective. By faith, we're going to see this city change. I believe it. I'm speaking it prophetically. In this house, there are people that are going to see by faith that, that new nonprofit needs to start that's going to help kids and youth with their wellness, or we're going to facilitate resources to what's already there. By faith, we're going to see our schools change because we are going to start developing and investing back into our communities and in our public schools and stop wasting things elsewhere and actually invest in our city again. By faith, we're going to see people that have been drug addicts for their whole entire life with no reason or cause come weeping at the cross and life transformed and bringing other people in testimony by faith. By faith, some of us are finally going to believe Jesus for who He is because we've seen what He's done before and He can do it again. And by faith, I'm going to say this too. This is the vulnerable part of faith. By faith, some of us are going to believe for things we've never seen happen in our family, but we are going to believe because we are going to be the ones that change and break generational curses. We are going to be the ones that move forward in something that's never been seen in our family before, but by faith, things are going to change. And I believe that for this house. I believe that for our families. I believe that for what we are going through by faith. And sometimes we just need to say it. I did this with the last service, and I think it's important for us to do it with this one too. What I'm going to do, I'm going to count us down, and we are all going to say by faith together. Because here's the thing. You can hear something and think something and be like, that's nice, that's sweet. But when you say it, now you got something behind that. You said it with your words. Words bring power of life or death. By faith. We're saying it together. In 3, 2, 1. By faith. Ooh. I want you, if you're able, to stand up real quick. Because we're going to stand on it. We ain't just going to sit with it. We're going to stand on it. So we're going to say it again, all together, again, here in 3, 2, 1. By faith. Amen. I love that. Amen. Yes. So by faith, I want to call up our prayer partners, because we do believe in the bridge between spiritual and physical. We want to pray over what you're going through. We want to connect with you about the things that are happening in your mental, and we want to navigate that with you. So prayer partners, if you're here, go ahead and come on up. I'm going to pray over us today, and then we're going to get going. God, thank you for every single person who took time today to open their heart and their mind by faith to believe that there are beautiful things that you are working out within their mental, within their physical, within their hearts and souls. God, I believe by faith today that we would trust you with the things that we need, trust you with the things that we're going through, trust you to see that, hey, God, I really thought the story was over, but you still got me here. I want to find out why. God, help us to seek the help we need, to believe you for the things that you say in prayer and also in therapy. God, help us to continue these conversations of mental wellness, of mental illness and mental health, and not give up even when everything's telling us to. God, I know that you say you love us. May we believe that today and water the garden of our mind with your word, with your promises, and with your spirit. We give this all to you in your name. Amen. Now that we have come and had church, let's go and be the church. Come up and get prayer. Thank you for being here today. Amen.
Thank you so much for joining us. Everything we need, God's got it. If you need prayer, if you need anything, please reach out, make certain that you follow up. We hope that you enjoyed that powerful message. See you next time.